James, I'd love someone to consult me about the national curriculum, about propaganda in the classroom, about the state of our roads, about the level of government spending. But like everyone else, I don't get consulted. We elect people to represent us. As you say, there are 11 Indigenous people in the Parliament. Why should, in our liberal democracy, some citizens be treated differently based on race?
Well, that's the big picture principle point. There's no answer to that. The answer is they shouldn't. And then there's more technical problems. One is that this is going to just fire up judicial activism. Everyone knows it. We have a high court that just made up in love. They just made up out of thin air this idea that non-citizen Aboriginals can't be deported. Why not? You can deport non-Aboriginals, but Aboriginals, you can't deport them. And we're talking about non-Australian citizens. Now, if the High Court can do that with our present Constitution, you can't give them anything to work with. Who knows where this will go? The High Court might get involved in deciding who gets to be an Aboriginal. They might get involved in, how much consultation has to be had. So I hate that. And the other big problem is all the people who say this is a very limited sort of, you don't have to consult. I saw this in Canada back in 1982 when Trudeau repatriated the Constitution. They couldn't get it through, so they put in this provision that allowed Parliament to be supreme if it enacted a law. And all the same sort of people, all the left-wing intelligentsia kept saying, look, it's so minimal, it's so minimal. And then as soon as it got in, they said, you can't use this, you can't use this. Hasn't been used once in 40 years. You need your right of center political party to have a backbone. They never do. And so the same thing will happen here. If this goes through, the same people who are saying, oh, it's minimal, Parliament has the last word, will scream blue murder if Parliament tries to override the voice. They will become a de facto last word. And you just know that's the pattern we're going to see.
That's outstanding. Outstanding. The final report to the Parliament says, quote, the Australian Parliament and government would be obliged to ask the national voice. So if this is all on laws and policies that affect one group of people, do they race to the courts then to determine whether they're constitutionally entitled to what they're arguing?
Well, I bet they do. And anyway, in theory, every law affects Aboriginal people,
Yes.
just as every law affects us all.
Yep.
So who knows where the limit is? There is no limit. It's unconstrained.
What are the
So
weaknesses?
there's real technical legal...
See, James, what are the weaknesses in our Constitution that require an amendment based on race?
There are no problems with... I think we have a pretty good Constitution. I think the High Court has screwed it up when it comes to federalism, but that wasn't the fault of the designers. It's the fault of the sort of lawyerly judicial caste. So we've really undermined federalism. But in all other ways, we have one of the oldest written constitutions in the world. It's the fourth or fifth oldest. People don't realize, in terms of standing the test of time, you have Britain, the US, and then sort of Switzerland, Canada, and us.
Look, I've got at least a dozen questions for which there don't seem to be any answers. I mean, for example, you could ask them, what will it do? Who will be standing as a candidate? Who will vote? Will it have legislative powers? Will they pay their own way, or are they on parliamentary salaries? Are we going to have an electoral roll for the voice based on race, where only one race can vote? Will we have a special set of laws for one group in the community? Professor James Allan, what are the answers to these questions? I mean, what happens if Parliament overrides the views of the voice?
Well, look, here's what we know for sure. Mr. Albanese is saying it's a minimal model, but it's actually a maximum model. What you are saying is give maximum trust to Parliament, which right now is effectively in the hands of Labour and the Greens with the independent from ACT. So give maximum trust to these people in Parliament after the Constitution to dissolve. If we vote yes, they can design anything they want. And we're supposed to sign off on that without seeing any of the details. We don't know the details. They're going to be bad. And it's worse than that. Whatever they say the details are at the beginning, it will be worse after it goes through, because once it's put into the Constitution, it doesn't matter what anyone said beforehand. It's all that matters is what the judges say later. And the judges